Okay, with this little video on the as a follow-up to the section I'm doing on those prefab little building sheds and trying to make those livable, realize that you've got building code issues anywhere in the country right now. And when you talk about constructing some living space, you've got some people with workarounds. Now, we can put high walls up anywhere, but these fence sections, these wooden fence sections, $40 to $60 a section, actually $35 to $60 a section, $30 for just a little non-secure thatch type stuff, $30 to $60 a section, you know, averaging in the high 50s, I think, for the stuff that's real material. Is it structural for a building that will hold a roof? No, but you can get a lot of privacy. You're not going to hold back a determined mob of zombies with this, but you can definitely define private space. So if you're doing a prefab haul-out type of retreat that you're just trying to build up in a weekend with prefab buildings and stuff, and you take a few sections of this stuff out with you, you can start to enclose those backyard, side yard areas, and you've really added the living space, barbecue space, you know, even if it's not decked in, even if it's just, you know, you scrape the ground and maybe laid some gravel down, maybe not. You don't want it to be a big mud puddle out there, and that's one of the reasons people use decks. But if you just set these up as privacy space out by one of those buildings, you've effectively added your living space, just like on a regular house when you build out into a yard. The trick to having it not look like a big fucked up shanty place is going to be in a landscaping. But like I explained in another video, for just the regular construction handyman type stuff, it won't hold roof very well. This is pretty much going to be its own structure. You're not going to put a roof over this. You might be able to do some kind of tarp tent stuff on a very strictly temporary basis, but you definitely can get buildings up very quickly. And if you have a cargo utility trailer, or you keep these things in a utility shed out at the location and then set it up after you get there, it's one of the ways you can prevent somebody else from coming and taking residence in your sheds, because they're going to be full of shit. So that works. And when you won't have fencing and closed off areas, these are perfectly good for keeping critters out of the more sensitive garden areas. You're not going to be able to totally fence off a subsistence farm garden without getting into a lot of other material here. And that really starts adding to the cost. It's not something probably that you would think about stockpiling. It's probably not. It's something you can scavenge after the fact, I'll be honest with you. Some things can be scavenged after a major collapse. I think fencing material is those items. I think rock, not something to stockpile. It really isn't. You buy it as you need it. There's no reason to stockpile that material. Drainage tile, piping, nah, you're not going to mess with that. But when you're talking about these prefab sections, it can be really convenient to have them out ahead of time, so that when you build the little homestead areas, especially at a little prefab survival village, you can actually make it look pretty attractive, which is one of the reasons I'm proposing this with a project that I'm working on with some people, where we want to keep the buy-in cost low and the reward for the buy-in relatively high, where every person that buys in gets one of those little prefab buildings plus a little fenced off area with these things, so that they know that they've got private space. Micro homes, they're really not meant for full-time long-term residents, but a year or two while a recovery gets back in gear, or maybe a communal place gets built up a lot better, definitely works. And then they would stay up indefinitely. Again, this is all 30 to 50 year construction type stuff according to the warranties. Realistically, you might be replacing these after, 15 years, and in the Pacific Northwest climate, go a little longer in the desert Southwest. And in the South, it kind of varies on what kind of preservative you're going to use on a material. I could say 30 years will work, but I don't think anyone puts a warranty on this stuff beyond about 10 years.